this video, we will be looking at a standard maintenance form within Counterpoint. For this example, I will be going into inventory items. And this is a very good example of how maintenance forms look and behave within Counterpoint. In this example, I'm going to start off by just using this magnifying glass. Counterpoint refers to these as a lookup. You'll notice when I click on that, I get a little pop-up. And within the lookup, there's a very handy feature called keyword lookup. And I can, just by beginning to type a bit of a description, I can find a particular item. I'll try another one here. And you'll notice that as I am typing, that list of choices is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Within the maintenance form, Counterpoint is displaying different fields that I can either edit or insert data. In this example, I happen to look up this item, but I also have some navigation tools. These forward-backward buttons allow me to move through the list of items. Another way that I can navigate through these, there's an icon in the top toolbar. This is called Table View, and this allows me to look at multiple records at once. So instead of looking at one item at a time, I could click on Table View, and now I can see multiple items at the same time. To get back to looking at one item at a time, I can click on that same Table View, and I'm back to looking at one at a time. If I've made changes to an item, I'll just edit this slightly. I can save my changes. If I made changes and I did not want to keep them, I could hit this escape. Are you sure you want to cancel? I can say yes, and I can escape out. Some other features here, I'll just pick on an item. There's a number of icons across the top here, and I want to take just a moment and talk about some of the main icons. I mentioned this escape before. This allows you to escape out without saving changes. If you've been making changes, then this icon for save will be lit up, so you could save as you go. Save these changes. If I was already on an item and I wanted to go on to adding another item, I could hit the add, and this puts me to the point where I can add another item. You might notice that when I first came into the form, I'll go back one step, this is exactly the place I am when I first began. So I would refer to this as a insert/lookup mode. If I typed in an item that I knew actually existed, I believe this item exists. If I type in an item that exists, it's going to pull it up. If I typed in something that does not exist, for example, test 112233, then I'm going down the path of creating a brand new item. About the only heads up that I would get is you'll notice here under description, it says enter description. That's a heads up that you are entering a new item simply because you put an item number that did not exist. Now, I will say for most customers, when creating new items, you're probably using this auto assign simply because computers are very good at keeping track of next numbers. And so rather than you coming up with a next number, we'll use auto assign and we'll put in a test. Now, I will show you, just to get you in good habits, I could build this item from scratch, but I will say, just to start thinking about getting in good habits, that oftentimes in retail, if you're creating an item, there's a very good chance it already exists. So you can see there's a copy from, and I'm going to take advantage of that. And let's say I'm creating, maybe it's the 2023 version of this putter. Why not take advantage of using that copy from? And we'll just change the few fields that I need to. So maybe the price on this has gone up slightly. We'll do this for cost. And if I chose a good example to copy from, then a lot of these other fields are probably just going to come along for the ride, and I've saved myself some clicks. All right, some other things to talk about in this top toolbar. I mentioned this table view, and this is very handy. So instead of looking at one item at a time, you can look at a group. However, if you have a few thousand items, which you most likely do, then seeing table view may not be as useful because it's kind of the world here. So along with table view, there's a very handy icon that looks like a filter. This can be referred to as a filter in Counterpoint. It kind of looks like a funnel. If I click on this, then instead of looking at the world, I can narrow this down. So maybe I'll choose just to look at one vendor in my filter. You can see that narrowed the list. There's other ways I could have narrowed this. I could have done this by category. Let's look at food, etc. So between the table view and the filter, very handy. Now you might say, well, why would I use this? Maybe for your vendor, maybe some of your prices have gone up over time. You could come in here and simply because I'm filtered for this vendor, I could put my cursor here and go right down the row and start updating prices. You can edit in table view the fields that you see here. You can edit these just like you could when you're in record view. So for example, if the price on this item went up a bit, I can update that right here. I can change descriptions right in place, etc. Lastly, just a few quick icons here. I'm just trying to highlight the most important ones. I'll go back to my single view here. There is a field that looks like kind of a lock, and this, if you hover over this, you'll notice it says Enable Protected Changes. There are a few fields in Counterpoint that appear to be not available for you to make changes, but you can, if you click on this, you can open up that field and you can make changes. When you're done, you can always close that back. This guy is for printing labels, and we'll talk more about that when we get into inventory in a future video. But from here, you could choose a label job, choose a printer, and you can print labels from here. So there's you'll see these throughout Counterpoint. It looks like a Z. Z stands for zoom, and zoom simply means more information. So when I click that, that gives me information about this particular item. In this particular case, an item zoom will show you things like quantity on hands at other locations. You could look at monthly history for this item, etc. So again, you'll find zooms all throughout Counterpoint, and they go along with whatever they're pointing at. So in this case, this was pointed at the item field, so I get item information. Here's a vendor zoom. I could get more information about this vendor. So you will see those throughout Counterpoint. And of course, as always, if you have questions, please reach out to us at LPA Retail.